My husband secretly swaps my son with the child next door, his first love's baby. I act like I know nothing, and arrange for someone to switch the babies back. My husband wants me to raise someone else's child as my own, but has no idea he's not even the father of my son. 10 years later, I transfer all my assets to my son's name as a birthday gift. That's when my husband's first love, Amanda Larkin, crashes the birthday party. She looks at me smugly and says, "The son you've treasured for the past decade is actually mine." My son, Jacob Weiss, had just received the asset transfer agreement from me when Amanda Larkin barged into our house. "Oh, Jacob, my dear son." I turned to my husband, Greg Morton. "Greg, mind explaining what Amanda is saying?" By now, Jacob was standing behind me. He cast an indifferent glance at Amanda, who was wiping her tears away. Then, he rolled his eyes at Greg. Although Jacob had just turned 10 this year, he had unfortunately caught Greg having an extramarital affair with Amanda 2 years ago, and told me the truth. I never imagined that my son would be exposed to the dark side of human nature at such a tender age. Ever since that day, Jacob had known that Greg didn't care about our family. Before Greg could speak, Amanda tearfully threw herself at Jacob. "Jacob, come here. Let me give you a hug. I can finally come forward and claim you as mine." Jacob evaded her embrace, a disdainful and aloof look on his youthful face. "You're not my mom is Rachel Weiss." He stared at Amanda as if she were insane. I smiled with satisfaction at Jacob, who had taken after my calm demeanor at such a young age. Amanda lost her footing and collapsed onto the floor. Greg helped her up, looking sorry for her. He accused me. "Rachel, how could you do this to Amanda? I cut him short by slapping both of them across the face. "Amanda is a mistress. She has no right to step foot in our home." "Greg, it's Jacob's birthday today. Why would you invite Amanda over?" My tone dripped with iciness. I couldn't hide my contempt and disgust for Amanda. Right then, Greg abruptly rose and raised his hand at me with a menacing scowl. All of a sudden, Jacob appeared from behind and shielded me with his tiny body. "Don't hit my mom." He was no match for Greg's strength, yet he rammed his head into Greg's belly with full force in an attempt to protect me. Greg lost his balance. Clasping his abdomen, he fell onto the floor. He let go of Amanda, who also fell down with him. Realizing his own son had assaulted him, his face flushed in fury. In a fit of anger, he tried to kick Jacob, but Amanda stopped him. "Calm down, Greg. Jacob is our son. Don't hit him." Greg finally managed to rein in his anger, but his chest heaved wildly as he shot daggers at Jacob. "How dare you hit me at such a young age? I would have taught you a lesson if your real mom hadn't stepped in. You're nothing but a troublemaker. Rachel must have raised you wrong." Greg directed his glare at me as he said that. If looks could kill, I would have been dead. But Jacob didn't flinch. Instead, he spread his arms wide to protect me. "Real men don't hit women. You're wrong for cheating on mom with another woman." I looked at his tiny frame, standing tall and defiant. As he seethed with anger, I could see myself in him. One of our older relatives, Timothy Weiss, broke up the argument between Greg and Jacob. He tapped his walking stick on the floor to silence everyone. "Quiet, what's going on?" As the oldest person there, Timothy commanded everyone's respect. He turned to Greg and Amanda, scrutinizing them. "Why do you have to cause a scene on Jacob's birthday?" Amanda shot Greg a look. Greg, taking her hint, immediately faked a sigh. "Since everyone's here today, I shall take this opportunity to announce some very important news." As he spoke, he cast a conflicted look at Jacob. I coldly watched his acting, feeling nothing but disdain. Jacob isn't Rachel's son. As Greg dropped a bomb, the party attendees began to murmur among themselves. Jacob's shoulders trembled slightly. He looked at me with a mix of confusion, fear, and panic. I stroked his head to comfort him and gently pulled him closer. A gleeful, victorious look briefly flashed across Greg's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by sadness and remorse. He explained, "Rachel and Amanda gave birth on the same day. When I visited Amanda with Rachel's baby, I made a mistake and swapped the two babies." His head hung low as if he were very upset, but I almost laughed at his hypocrisy. Greg was the one who had overstepped boundaries with Amanda, yet he was trying to cover up his evil plan of swapping the babies by calling it a mistake. He stole a glance at me, expecting me to break down and make a scene. However, I showed no reaction, and simply took a sip of my coffee. He continued, "I just wanted to make it clear to everyone here that Amanda is Jacob's biological mom, not Rachel." Taking another look at me, he added, "Rachel, you gave birth to a daughter, not a son. We need to right the wrongs today and hand Jacob back to Amanda." Some of our relatives looked shocked. Soon, people began to discuss the incident. Turns out they accidentally swapped the two babies. It's not a big deal. They can just swap them back. Rachel gave birth to a daughter. Since a daughter can't inherit the family wealth, Rachel should take this chance to step down. Eyes narrowed, I scanned the faces of those who had spoken up. They must have been infiltrators arranged by Greg. He had known these people would speak up for him. These useless petty bootlickers and Weiss Group had long harbored resentment toward me. They would love to see me leave Weiss Group so they could continue working there. Tears immediately rolled down Amanda's cheeks. She appeared heartbroken, as if I had really taken her child away. "Rach, Greg is telling the truth. Jacob is my son. Stop lying to yourself. I am Jacob's biological mother." Amanda tried to claim her child back with great sincerity. She thought I was in the dark. On the contrary, I was well aware of Greg and Amanda's actions. Jacob was my son. There was no doubt about that. 10 years ago, Dad had forced me to break up with my first love, Derek Stark, all because he deemed Derek poor and therefore not good enough for me. Dad passed away not long after I broke up with Derek. Drowning in despair, I agreed to marry Greg when he proposed to me. After all, he had been doggedly pursuing me for a long time. However, during the wedding preparations, I discovered that Greg was cheating on me with Amanda. Seeing that, I realized that he was only marrying me for my money. He had been dating Amanda from the start. On my wedding night, I made Greg drink so much alcohol that he became stupidly drunk. I misled him into thinking we had slept with each other. After Jacob was born, Greg stealthily switched him with Amanda's daughter. Unbeknownst to him, I quietly switched them back. Since newborn babies looked almost no different from each other, my actions went unnoticed. There was one thing Greg didn't know. I had been 4 weeks pregnant with Derek's child at the time of our wedding. In the next 10 years, I raised Jacob with much care and love. Greg was good to him too. Sometimes I wanted to laugh at Greg when I saw how much effort he poured into raising Jacob. Greg thought he had fooled me, but he was the real clown here. I had no doubt he would be shocked to learn he had raised someone else's son for 10 whole years. Rachel, Amanda's right. There's been an accidental swap. Jacob is not your son. You gave birth to a daughter. Greg's tone carried a cynical edge. Amanda is still Jacob's biological mother, no matter how much you deny it. I sneered. I think you're out of your mind. What nonsense is that? Feeling humiliated, Greg became furious. Don't believe me? Let's get a DNA test. Jacob is definitely not related to you. Greg spat at me. Not only that, I want a divorce. I only pursued you because you were nice and obedient. I never thought you'd turn out to be so unreasonable. I'm done putting up with you. As he spoke, he glanced at Amanda from the corner of his eye. He appeared to have it all planned out. Getting a divorce from me, marrying Amanda, securing custody of Jacob, and ruining Weiss Group. I found Greg's words hilarious. He had been poorer than Derek when he pursued me. I had only agreed to settle down with him because Dad's death was still a raw wound, and I had lost all hope at that time. Although Greg had compromised and married into the Weiss family, he had been rewarded with wealth and social status in return. How could he turn around and accuse me of humiliating him? He was utterly abhorrent. I knew what he was playing at. Every year, I would give Jacob an expensive gift on his birthday. This time, it was a stock transfer agreement. I had granted Jacob half of my shares in Weiss Group. Greg and Amanda must have thought it was the right time to gain power in Weiss Group through Jacob, but they probably never imagined that I would have seen through their scheme early on. Sounding calm and unperturbed, I replied, "All right, let's get a divorce. Forget about the DNA test though. Jacob is definitely mine." Mom! At that moment, a girl entered through the main door and made a dash for my arms. She looked up at me, declaring, "Mom, I'm Charlotte Weiss. I'm your daughter." This took everyone by surprise. All eyes were on me and the little girl. I thought, this must be the girl they claim is my daughter. I didn't look shocked at all. After all, I knew the truth. Charlotte was Greg and Amanda's biological daughter. Mom, I finally found you. You're my mom. Charlotte's hair was dry and dull. She looked emaciated with sunken cheeks. One could tell the abuse she had endured living with Amanda over these years. Alas, Amanda must have assumed she was abusing my daughter, when in reality, Charlotte was her child all along. Timothy, who had first spoken up, could no longer stand this fiasco. He tapped his walking stick on the floor again, demanding answers. "Greg, who's this girl?" Nodding, Greg answered, "This is Rachel's daughter. She's been weak from a young age and is always sick. We can never nurse her back to health." Silence filled the living room. I had my doubts. Perhaps Charlotte wasn't born a sick child as they claimed. She was sick because of Amanda's deliberate neglect. Charlotte refused to let go of my hand. Her face was streaked with tears. "Mom, I miss you so much. You're my mom, aren't you?" Pouting pitifully, Charlotte turned to Jacob. "I won't take your mom from you, but can I ask her to help pay my medical bills? It's either that, or I'll die." Jacob's features contorted with conflicting feelings. He was too young to make sense of the adult world, but he understood the gravity of death. "Mom." I caressed Jacob's head. "Darling boy, leave it to me." Greg came forward to convince me, saying, "Rachel, I know you're struggling to accept the truth right away, but you can't just watch Charlotte die. She's your daughter. I'm trying my best to get her treated, but in the worst-case scenario, her last wish is to spend time with her biological mom." He was making an emotional appeal now. Everyone was so touched by his words that they started to try talking me into it. "Rachel, just take Charlotte in. She's your biological daughter. Since Greg married into the Weiss family, Jacob is still considered a Weiss. You don't have to worry about Weiss Group falling into the hands of others." That was exactly Greg's logic, which explained why he had brazenly invited Amanda to Jacob's birthday party. He believed that I would succumb to public pressure and recognize Charlotte as my daughter. If I acknowledged Charlotte as my daughter, it would be proof that Jacob was Amanda's son. Then Greg and Amanda, with Jacob on their side, would technically wield power over Weiss Group. Smiling, I ignored Greg's words. "Greg Morton, you're the one who cheated. Are you really going to cover up your behavior by saying it was all an accident?" "I'm not going to delve into past matters. Even if Jacob weren't my biological son, I would still see him as mine because I have raised him for 10 years. My wealth and property, including my shares in Weiss Group, will go to Jacob." With a smile, I turned to Jacob, lovingly stroking his head. "Darling, I will give everything to you. Do you want to live with me after Dad and I get a divorce, or do you prefer to live with him?" Jacob tilted his head. After thinking for a while, he walked up to Greg as everyone watched.